I lost track of what part we're on. I think we're on part 3. Yeah.
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 Well, yeah, we're currently on part 3.
Because I swapped during the break, so. Okay, the head.
I would say like right after this next thing you point out, that would be beginning of part 4. That'd be a good spot.
Yeah. The headline's writing itself.
Yeah, I already read that. Dash and Lawyer hopes dash 92 points across the whole page. We'll do an extra edition.
This is a serious blow, Sasato. Unless we're able to identify the true culprit and sustainable our claim with evidence, the judge will give his ruling and the trial will be over. But that's impossible, Father. We don't even know how the crime was committed yet. Impossible though the task may seem, we have no choice. We must think back over everything we've learned thus far. Somewhere in all those details, I'm confident we'll find the clue we need. Ray gave us her account of how events folded in the defendant's antechamber before the trial resumed. She told us what had happened at the precise moment Miss Brett was killed. I think someone was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. And then, a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet. Before collapsing on the floor in front of me, with a knife in her back. How could Miss Brett have been stabbed in the back in a beach hut that was empty but for herself and Ray? Somewhere amid all the information we gathered so far, there must be an answer to that question. I take it then that the defense has nothing further to add.
So, the Gallic Yokel student luck finally runs out. I can't say I'm surprised.
In that case, I'm ready to deliver my final verdict on this matter. This is a crucial turning point now. If I can't establish what really happened, it's over. Where was the real culprit hiding, and how did he or she stab the victim? I want to check something really quick. I never checked out the pen again, or the murder weapon, as it seems.
It's not really that much of interest on it. I actually don't think it's really relevant anymore.
I haven't examined it, though, so I'm just going to do the combo. This must be the victim's blood. Oh dear, blood is never a pretty sight, is it? I'm having to fight the urge to run it under a hot tap and get it clean. You've always been fastidious about cleanliness, haven't you? I think this is something else. Father. Okay, so nothing there. Yeah, that gap is huge. Like, that's probably going to be what it is. Your Excellency, I respectfully ask you to postpone your education for the time being. Oh, to what end, counsel? The defense would like to present the court with an alternative theory. An alternative theory that can explain who the victim was actually trying to implicate with her dying gesture.
Check! An alternate theory? None exist. You gotta do your objection voice too for her.
Yeah. There was someone else present. Oh, yeah. Objection! There's someone else present at the scene who could have been committed this crime.
What?
And the victim, Miss Brett, tried to reveal who it was to those around her at the time by mustering all her remaining strength and pointing a trembling finger at the killer's direction.
This is fiction. Fantasy.
This is reality, caught in a flash. No escape.
Caught in a landslide.
There we go. I couldn't think of the word. Very well, as you seem to be so sure of yourself, Counsel, I am prepared to hear your alternative theory. So, young Ryotaro no Hodo. Yes, Your Excellency. You will present your latest theory to the court by means of this plan. At the moment the victim was stabbed, where exactly
You good?
Kinda. I need to check something really quick. I just, like, dropped a pop, but it landed face up, like normally as it would, and it just, like, fucking exploded. Give me a second.
Ladies and gentlemen, Earl. man okay? Can we keep this up a charade?
I'm fine, I swear. Of
You're
the-
fine, but it's the can fine. It's the floor around you fine.
The floor around me is fine. I'm not sure if my hitbox is fine.
Oh no.
Hitbox is my fighting game controller I ordered from eBay. Or Amazon. I need to check this beast for a quick second.
What are we gonna do with you?
Oh, by the way, while we're on this little side note here, do you remember in I think it's like either one of the fusion cards or one of the Pokemon set. Big KO pulled a $200 Charizard card. You know, the rainbow type.
The Rainbow Charizard?
Yeah, the Big KO pulled the rainbow Charizard.
Wasn't that Brilliant Stars?
I think
there was
I think so.
I think Brilliant Stars had a Rainbow Charizard. I don't think Fusion Strike had it.
He pulled it.
Yeah. I
So
think that's like one of the most expensive cards from Brilliant Stars. It was
yeah,
a V-Star, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, V-Star is Brilliant Stars.
so he pulled that one and sent me the news this morning. I think it was really cool. Where exactly are you proposing the culprit was concealed? Probably behind the chair.
Take that!
Now, the Hodo-san would never give up, and I'm not a Hodo now. The true culprit who fatally stabbed Miss Brett, concealed in this location here. Are you mad, Counsel? You're suggesting that the culprit was outside the hut. Order, order, order. But student lawyer Naruhodo-san Esquire, that makes no sense at all.
You just pointed out the exact spot where I was hiding to get my scoop snap. But I didn't see any suspicious individuals loitering about. I can swear to that. Obviously, if the culprit had been outside the hut, there is no way that he or she could have stabbed the victim who was inside the hut.
Actually, prosecutor, ouchie, there is a way. And in point of fact, the defense can provide evidence strongly suggesting this is precisely the way Miss Brett was killed.
You're bluffing. You're bluffing, Yoko.
The defense assertion is clearly too fantastical for the court to comprehend. You will need to give us more guidance, counsel. What place of evidence corroborates the theory that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut?
And welcome to part 4.
Welcome to part 4. The original photographic print of the crime scene. Yes, it's clearly visible in this print. The trace of a fatal thrust that was delivered from outside the beach hut.
Objection! Don't take us for fools. There's no hint at any such thing.
I'm not sure that everyone present would agree. Someone, at least, appears to have noticed what is it I'm referring to. Counsel, once again, I must call on you to be explicit for the court. Where on this photograph is a trace of stabbing which you claim to take place outside the hut? Look closely just here. In the screen at the back of the hut, you can see the effects of a blade having been forced through the reeds.
No, it can't be. I can't see any such thing.
It's true that the hut in question had 4 walls, as you'd expect. However, by parting with the reeds, a knife blade could easily penetrate them. This is extraordinary. Yes. The true culprit actually stabbed the victim from outside the beach hut. Ah. And of everyone present at the scene, there's only one person who could have done that. Only one person who was directly outside the hut when Miss Brett was killed. Right, Tin Minimimo-san, it could have only been you.
Objection! This is a preposterous idea, leaves me almost speechless. Just look at the photograph again. The victim lies almost exactly in the center of the beach hut, does she not? Are we to assume that as part of this
Farcical.
vertical
Farcical.
farcical scenario that the assailant was a knife thrower?
No, of course not.
We're not.
If you recall the testimony of the defendant about the events just before the victim's death, inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on the stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as she knew she was untouchable.
A stool?
Have another look at this photograph. The slit in the read screen would align perfectly with the back of a person who was sitting on that stool. My word, so in fact, the victim was killed while sitting on that stool by a stab wound to her back delivered through the read screen. Having been attacked, Miss Brett rose to her feet instinctively, but then, unable to speak, she collapsed on the floor in the middle of the hut. Before the defendant, Membani-san's appalled eyes. And that, Your Excellency, is the truth of what happened on the beach that day. By your silence, Menimemo-san, I take it that you don't deny the charge.
This is absurd.
Absurd. That will do. It would appear that we have a tacit admission of guilt from the witness. Accordingly, this court has successfully established with the truth of the matter, which means that the defendant, Menabami-san, is innocent of this crime. Oh, thank goodness. I finally made him cave. I must say I've never been more proud.
No, this can't be. These are can't. What if my growth? What if my hope? Was it all an aspiration? I can't accept this. I won't.
I see no reason for the continuance of this trial. I will therefore move to conclude proceedings by delivering my final verdict and... Yep.
Hold it!
We know who it is.
Yeah.
We know. There's only one person that can speak for himself.
Well, this is very convenient. This is all the highest court of our mightiest empire delivers justice, is it? Suppressing well-meaning citizens' freedom to speak and branding them as criminals.
But we've established that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut through the read screen walls. And no one but you was in the place at the time to have his hand on the hilt of the blade. It's a perfectly logical deduction.
So, your argument hinges on the location of whoever stabbed the Englishwoman, does it? Well, it seems a little irrelevant now.
Irrelevant?
Where she was stabbed, how she was stabbed. It doesn't matter. I mean, whether she was stabbed at all makes no difference if you think about it. After all, this trial's already shown the whole thing hinges on something else.
The poison. I hate it, but he's right. What are you talking about?
Brace yourselves, little man. I'm talking about the fact that everything changed. Because of the dirt you dug up.
What? Enough obscurity. Explain yourself, witness. What's to explain? Damn it!
I'm talking about the poison, of course. The poison? Let's ask the professor for a comment on the situation, shall we? Understand that deadly poison you were developing was stolen from your laboratory, correct? And it has been shown that this poison was administered to the victim, Miss Brett. Is that right?
That is correct. The unusual constriction of the victim's pupils are a sure sign that particular poison was used.
I see, I see. So, that presumably means that the victim already had the poison in her body before she was stabbed.
Ah. Given that her pupils were clearly constricted, it seems highly likely yes. If she had been dead already, the poison could not have circulated in her blood.
How refreshing to hear the argument of a metropolitan mind. Precisely. It matters not a jot who stabbed whom and is whose back was whose blade. Because, quite simply, the Englishwoman's life was taken but not by knife, but by poison.
But that can be explained by the poison being on the blade, as I already...
Have we already forgotten? Have we, young Noble? During these very proceedings, the laboratory of the professor at your side assisted in proving that the blade was the weapon used to attack the victim had no trace of poison on it whatsoever.
Ugh.
So, let me get this down. The facts, as skillfully established by the defense in the trial. Turns out, the headline making red herring. Is that about right?
Order, order, order. But what does this leave us? How, in that case, did the poison enter the victim's body? There's an undeniably obvious answer to that. The lady must have been, most likely, imbibed it. You mean she drank it? Have another look at the photograph here. As you can see, a bottle of carbonated water and a glass had been knocked on the sandy floor of the beach hut. The poison could have been slipped into either. So somebody made Miss Brett drink it.
Well, what do you know? Look at those dashing eyes. This will make for a great front page shot. Hey, why the bewitching stare? After all, I'm the last person you should be looking at. It would make no sense at all that I poisoned a woman, would it? I mean, I've been established already.
Established? What are you talking about?
Huh. Don't tell me you've already forgotten. That's a little hard to believe, given the person who established it was you.
Me? What on earth does he mean?
Ooh, let me capture those wide eyes. The prime press fodder it is.
It seems that the trial is not destined to end yet, after all. I hereby call upon the witness to give further testimony.
That's great, that is. Let me get a shot of that magnificent beard, Your Excellency.
You claim it to be impossible that you were the one responsible for administering the poison to the victim. You will explain to this court your testimony on the basis upon which you make such a claim.
I'm a journal. I'm a man. Never tried to run or hide from anything in my life. Now I'm about to start now, because that's minimalism.
For a brief moment, I thought I illuminated the truth, but it slipped right back into obscurity again. Just where is this trial going to take us?
Where indeed? Oh yes, I stabbed the Englishwoman. That's the very fact that proves I'm innocent. Because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? When I heard the student girl and the pompous English murderer arguing, got my goat. This court weren't going to punish Brett for what she did. Someone else would have to see justice done. Earl? Earl? Earl, did your mic disconnect or are you just silent?
I'm connecting a little. If she had any form of antidote for the poison they were developing on her at the time in case this happened, he would have to stab her.
But they haven't mentioned any kind of antidote, so...
Okay, but let's think about it for a second, right? Because he's the only one to see what they were talking about was the guy looking through the window, right? Looking through the reeds. If she was on the stool, maybe she knew she was poisoned, and she calmly waited for Ray to come back and then told her, "I've been poisoned. Do you have anything?" And she had it. At that moment, she would have plugged it in.
But Ray would have mentioned that.
Yeah, good point. Oh, that would have been perfect. The gears are turning. They're just turning weirdly.
Yeah, the gears are turning. That was an interesting point. I actually didn't think of like, oh, maybe Ray had an antidote, but like Brett, like it's already been confirmed by Ray and Ryton that Ray was arguing with her like, you saw the poison, and if Brett knew she was poisoned with said poison, he'd be like, I got poisoned with it by this guy behind the screen.
Yeah.
Help me.
Well, I don't think she knew he was outside the screen. As far as he knows, he could have stabbed her with the pen, and then she could have been experiencing
She didn't know he was there until she got stabbed.
Yeah. If the courts weren't going to punish Brett for what she did, something else would have seen justice done. Go again. Quack.
If the courts weren't going to punish Brett for what she did, someone else would have to see justice done.
So you admit it then. That everything happened as I described. That you are the one who stabbed Miss Brett in the back through the read screen.
You can't blame this miserable country for it. You can blame this miserable country of ours. Country that bows to the pressure of foreign powers and lets murderers walk free. What kind of future can a country like that have? That's why I did it. Did what our pathetic leaders didn't have the guts to do. Slap bang in the middle of that charming lady's back, I plunged the blade of sweet justice right in there.
Even if he doesn't get away with murder, he's still going to jail.
As someone who spends his life seeing the truth is told, I feel really, really awful about giving false information in my testimony before. But as it turns out, there was somebody else who had it in for the victim and got her before me. That's right, you guessed it. The pretty little student girl. Now that's a woman after my own heart.
You're implicating Ray again.
She's the one who gave the poison to the English woman that ended her pitiful existence. And suddenly, snap, this journal's off the hook.
The argument is sound, certainly. If the witness has administered the poison herself, he need only wait for it to take effect. Subsequently, stabbing the victim in the back would have been entirely nonsensical.
And therefore, the reporter had nothing to do with the poisoning. Yes, it's all quite logical. That's right. It is. Logical and true. I'm glad you've all seen it. Just at the last.
This is unbelievable. And after I made so much progress in proving his guilt, is he going to get away with it now? Ah, the good old face slap. Take a Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san. They never stopped looking for a way forward until the judge's final gavel. Very well, then, counsel, proceed in what I assume to be your final cross-examination in this trial. Yes, Your Excellency.
Oh yes, I stabbed the Englishwoman. That's a very fact that proves I'm innocent.
I need to check out this pen. Can I, like... It's not going to give me a shot here, is it?
A what?
A shot to, like, put the reagent on it.
No.
So you did admit that you had a murderous intention toward Miss Brett, then?
Ha! The woman's very existence offended my sense of justice.
Your sense of he's claiming some sort of righteous indignation.
She was pure evil, cold-blooded killer who committed murder right in our Empire's soul. But did our good-for-nothing government do anything? Not a chance. So I had to step in. Fly the flag of justice, put things right for the people. Yes, it was my civic duty. That's what drove me to do it.
So, in summary, murderous intentions then.
Whatever you want to call it, the point is this. That English woman was a blight, so I had to do what was right. For society.
Nice rhyme.
Yet a real wrong was done by a student girl in the dock, a crime for which she must pay. Obviously, because the poisoning was nothing to do with me at all. Because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? Stupid moth.
So you still maintain that you didn't give the poison to the victim?
Obviously. That'd be like putting a belt on your trousers when you're already wearing braces like these. The accused administration of the poison following which the witness stabbed the victim. An unforgivable act, certainly, but not one of murder. The crime rests on the accused's shoulders. That is how the law works, you see, yokel. Who knows? You may even learn something here today.
Phew. Two consecutive attempts on her life in the space of minutes. Quite a day for the victim.
Do something that evil, you've got it coming. It's how the law works. The law of reckoning.
That's not the kind of law this court upholds. You will relate why you're compelled to stab the victim then, witness.
When I heard the student girl and that pompous English murderer arguing, got me at my gut.
What exactly were they arguing about?
But what happened in that restaurant 9 months ago? That's what.
Oh!
Student girl was laying into the English woman for killing her beloved mentor, Dr. Wilson.
Yes, John H. Wilson, professor of medicine, invited here from England by Professor Mikotoba, no less.
Right. The English woman just jeered. Her case was to be heard by the British consular court in Shanghai, however. There is a little doubt that she would have simply been acquitted and sent back to her homeland as a free woman. It was eating at the student girl inside. You could see it. I really felt for her.
Hold it.
Hi, Ray.
My waifu. I mean, I can't. I can't stand here and listen to this tripe. Ray.
Young girl, you stand accused here. You can't just blurt out whenever you feel like it. No, you can't. Sorry, but I'm in the middle of some very important testimony here. Just keep quiet and listen.
But this awful man is making all of this up. Sasato, please, you have to make them listen. Return to the dock at once, Membani-san. We're in the middle of cross-examination. Your Excellency, please, I implore you. That journalist is clearly not a trustworthy witness. Exactly. He's a filthy, rotten, black-hearted, bigoted, great peeping Tom. Thank you for someone finally pointing it out.
Whoa, take it easy there.
Please, I really think the court should hear what the defendant has to say.
Your Excellency, I see no need whatsoever to entertain the accused remarks.
I will grant the request of the defense.
But, Your Excellency...
This is likely to be the final cross-examination of these proceedings. As such, I believe it would be ill-advised to stifle the defendant's obvious concerns. So, whilst recognizing that this contravenes regular protocol, I hereby call upon the defendant to speak. Oh. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. It was nothing to do with Dr. Wilson. We were discussing the stolen poison.
fired a student. Never mind.
The stolen poison killed the victim, you mean? I suspected her of being the one to steal it. I mean, just think about how she killed Dr. Wilson. That's true. Additionally, Miss Brett certainly had knowledge of the new poison. But surely it'd be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed for the government. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison would be very difficult. That's true. I pestered Professor Mikotomo until he agreed to show me the poison when I visited his laboratory. But, as I left, I searched from top to tail. Miss Brett rather bluntly revealed the existence of the toxin we've been developing, you see. And since Saseki-san expressed such an interest in it, I felt unable to refuse. Obviously, I gave nothing away, other than the fact that it was an extremely potent substance. I'm very ashamed of myself. It's just that I had a singularly terrible experience with a deadly poison. I wanted to look at my old enemy in the eye. Surely you can understand that. To find out my suspicions were true, I confronted Miss Brett about the poison. I told her that if there were to be an incident involving it somehow, it wouldn't just be the university. The military would be dragged into it. The whole government, even. It would be a complete disaster. And how did Miss Brett respond to your concerns? She just curled up those beautiful lips of hers and said she didn't know the first thing about it. In English, actually. Ah, yes, Madame-san. One small question, if you don't mind. I do mind. Can't you see him? Oh, fuck.
Can't you see I'm busy?
I read for like 10 straight, okay? Clearly you're going outside the beach listening in whilst the defendant and Miss Brett were conversing. Presumably, then, it was you who wrote this article about what you heard. Oh.
Is it starting to click? Are all the buttons in your head clicking?
Exclusive deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Lab. The story was published in this morning's edition of Shoyu News. The details are too accurate for it to have been written by anyone else. He knows English.
Sorry, don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, look at this. The entire article. Stealing lines is a criminal offense. Well, jail me up, man. It's almost what I said to Miss Brett for word. Well, Minimum-san.
As a journal and a citizen of a free country, I don't have to reveal my sources. That's a founding principle of many memoism.
Bob is clearly right about this. That reporter did write that article, and he based it on what he overheard from outside the hut. So it's on which article is it? It's the poison article.
Poison. No, all it did was update the fact that the information was gleaned from him eavesdropping on Brett and Ray.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that. Nothing changed inside the examination part. It just added the fact that Raiten obtained the info from overhearing them.
So that's what it was all about. You were trying to cover up the fact that you were listening in. That's why you came up with that stinking story about me arguing with her.
Shut up. My stories never stink. Look, whatever you say, little girl, it doesn't alter the facts. Your Excellency, there's something I want to say. I want to go on the record.
Very well, you may amend your formal testimony.
The point is, if you poison someone, there'd be no reason to go and stab them in person as well.
Pompous English murder arguing. Fuck. Why would I bother to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? And then he said... Oh, fuck.
Has it clicked yet? Have you figured it out yet?
Hold on. It has nothing to do with that last statement. I just gotta go back to it.
I will say there's multiple ways to crush this.
No question this man was responsible for Miss Brett's murder. We could think about a plausible explanation as to why he might have stabbed her even after the poisoning. I feel sure that everything would drop into place. That's what we should be looking for. Yes, I agree, and in order to do that, I must try to glean more information.
The point is, if you poison someone, there'd be no reason to go and stab the person as well. So what is your issue with this statement?
But he did stab the person. The point is, if you'd poisoned someone...
Okay, yeah, we know he stabbed him. He's confessed to that.
Yeah.
But he's saying if he poisoned them, why would he also stab her? Like, why would he bother stabbing her if he'd already poisoned her? That's what his point is.
Because she has the pen?
No.
Let me think. That's so weird. I'm gonna press this. Perhaps you doubted the efficiency of the poison and sought to make sure your victim would die. Always double tap. The horse dung. Shit. What?
That'd be like pouring pepper on your Chinese ramen before you even tasted it. Completely reckless. Although, it might surprise you to learn that I'm a bit of a impetuous pepper pourer as it happens.
Once the victim had taken the poison, she would have been only minutes away from death. And yet, this man then proceeded to stab her in the back as well. There has to have been a good reason for that. If it was the reporter who gave the poison to Miss Bretta, then clearly, he must have done it prior to Ray entering the hut. Yes, that's undeniable. But between him leaving the hut and the victim being stabbed, there was one very crucial change in the situation. Sorry, what change? The reporter overheard the conversation between Ray and the Englishwoman. That's when Miss Menemesan first found out the exact nature of the poison he'd used. That could be the key here.
So, what do you think, girl?
It got my goat when I heard pompous English. He gleaned it by eavesdropping.
Do you need a hint?
That wouldn't do anything between that change. No hints.
You can't tell me no hints. If Earl wants a hint, I am giving it to him.
Okay, article about discussion between me and my father. Yeah, and then he had the debate with him. So that means he could probably understand something that regular people in Japan can't. Because he heard the English. So that article would point it towards him. How is that significant? I believe in Earl. He's the finest detective I've ever seen.
I think you're slightly overthinking it.
We were discussing the stolen poison. The point is, if you poison someone, there'd be no reason to go stab the person as well. Why does she have the pen?
Because he probably dropped it when he had his conversation with her.
If he had the conversation with her, and she had the pen,
He could have not noticed he dropped it on his way out.
I'm thinking, yeah, it has everything to do with the pen. She
Pen is
got.
not relevant here.
How is it not relevant? Because
Trust me,
if the poison is in the pen, right? That could explain how she got it.
yes, but how is that relevant here?
An alchemical
How is
poison.
him having a poison relevant right now?
God damn it! Give me a second.
You're missing some. You're not reading it the way the game's trying to get you to read it.
I know. Okay.
Do you need a hint to that effect?
Death is believed due to trauma to the victim's lungs from broken blade. Only a single wound was identified. Or should I say, Sherlock Holmes. A deadly poison being secretly developed in the university's forensic science laboratory was stolen. Even the smallest amount entering the body, either via the mouth with a wound from a poison-laced blade, would prove fatal in minutes. Current methods cannot detect the newly developed chemical. The university would have been. Wait, the university would have to be consulted. Impaired breathing and ending with acute. Impaired breathing, but she was talking.
Earl, what are we gonna do with you?
And rumored to have been commissioned by the military. It has. I feel like she was about to blab about something. You know what I mean?
No.
And we have the photograph at the scene of the crime. If she's. Am I. Okay, wait.
You're not looking at it the right way.
Okay. Give me the lightest hint on how I should change my perspective.
Okay, the best way I can put it without spoiling anything is order of events.
Okay.
That's one way I can put it, like to try to get you to think about it. That's not spoiling it.
The point is, if you poison someone, there'd be no reason to go and stab the person as well. Oh wait, if she poisoned her, why would she stab in the photo? Right. So
You're forgetting. She's trying to. In that picture, she was drawing the knife.
Yeah.
He's the one that stabbed her.
Yeah.
That is 100% confirmed. So she's trying to remove it there. So that's after he stabbed her. So you're trying to think of what happened between the time he was talking to Brett and the time he stabbed her. You're gonna think of that line of order of events.
Okay.
So what happened in between that time period that would cause him to stab her?
Okay, so he went back and he took the photo, right? So he was already behind listening before this moment, right? So he was talking to her. He went up for an interview and got rejected. He then somehow has the pen entered in her possession at one point, or he drops it, or who knows what, and then he leaves, but he decides to go for the scoop anyways. So he goes behind the shack. He then realizes her position as he's right behind her, right? Like right behind, and can see the situation in here. So the guy be chilling behind. She walks in, and she's sitting on the chair. Then they start talking about, you stole the poison. right? I didn't steal it. You stole the poison, right? He then stabs her. That's what we're
And
at.
that's where. So you gotta be thinking. Okay, something had to have happened that make him have to stab at that moment because we're assuming he's the one that poisoned her.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're going. He's the one that poisoned her. So why did he decide to stab?
Needs it for the gram. Jesus. If you poison someone, which he did, there'd be no reason to get them to stab the person as well. So we have a couple of things here. First of all, he understands English now. We can tell that, right? A newspaper containing an article about a discussion between my father and Saseki-san. The debate became quite spirited. And then you have the thing there. On the back. What was it on the back again? And then deadly poison stolen.
Do you need another hint as to what I'm trying to get you to see?
Okay, this article is... When was this article published? Like, murder-wise, timeline-wise.
The day after.
The day after.
So go to the poison article real quick. And read into it.
An article about poison that was stolen from a laboratory at Yume University. The reporter...
So he did not knew nothing about the poison before we assume he admitted, because we assume he somehow gave it to her while he was in with her. So
Wait.
if he knew nothing about it at that time,
Yeah.
and he heard all the information about it and then stabbed her, what do you think that's implying?
Wait.
That's the only thing that changed in between the time he talked with her and the time he stabbed her, is hearing the story about the poison.
Yeah.
And everything in that poison article is what he overheard. So why do you think he ended up stabbing it after hearing that stuff? It's like what importance does this article hold?
Via wound from a poison-laced blade would prove fatal in minutes. Such symptoms would be suggestive of this toxin. It's apparently an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids and rumored to be commissioned by the military. Why would he say poison-laced blade? That's very specific, isn't it?
That's not the part I'm referring to.
Okay. Even the smallest, tiniest amount entering the body, right? Either via the mouth or via a wound from a poison-laced blade would prove fatal in minutes. So there's already a wound.
Okay, but
wait, did she? Wait. Did she drink? Did he poison the bottle and it didn't work?
No, the poison worked. We know that for certain because of the autopsy report.
Yeah. The poison worked at the time. Would prove fatal in minutes. Current methods cannot detect it. Oh, it's...
I see,
On the 11th of August, a deadly poison being secretly developed in a university's forensic science laboratory was stolen. Even the smallest amount entering the body, either via the mouth, which is fine, or via a wound from a poison-laced blade, would prove fatal in minutes. So, she was still alive at the time. And he would have had to overhear something, right? Cannot be detected. University. Wait, the university would have to be consulted.
We've already discussed that.
But did he hear the university would have to be consulted from them?
Everything in this article he overheard from them.
Yeah. Was it because it was commissioned by the military?
It's on this page. The key aspect you're looking at is on this page.
Onset of symptoms occur in minutes, right? So, starting with impaired breathing, right? So, we have impaired breathing, but she's talking, Right, clearly.
So we can rule that out.
And ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. So, did he see her pupils go tiny? Like, did,
Or if everything was left as is, what would be the result of the investigation and her cause of death?
such symptoms would be suggestive of this toxin, so the university would be pointed at, right?
Hmm?
It's apparently an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids and rumored to be commissioned by the military. I'm fucking blanking out. Why is this important?
You need me to just explain it at this point.
Okay, give me a couple seconds here. We're having time with sequence of events, right? Contraction of pupils prior to death. Such symptoms would be suggestive of this toxin. It's apparently an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids and rumored to have been commissioned by the military. Why is the last line the military part matter?
No.
Okay, so we're ruling out the military. If it's entirely new, he's not necessarily. Maybe something would point to him, right? Because he was there recently.
So that's going back, thinking back to what happened when everyone was looking at the poison there.
Everyone was looking at the poison, but they didn't tell him
Who all
shit.
was involved in that? How many people were involved? Do we know were involved with that?
Him,
Ray,
Saseki,
Raiten, Brett,
Saseki-san,
and Saseki. 5 people.
which limits it down.
Who had access to the poison. If it got discovered that the poison was used, the list of suspects is very small.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to point out to you, is like, that is the key to this. It's like, if he heard
it's entirely new.
The pupil constriction, if it got noted on her, that would immediately point to the poison, and the amount of suspects would be so small.
Yeah.
He would instantly be.
Okay, I'm seeing it. Well, I can think of one reason. What? What? Yeah. Just kidding. But before I explain, I'd like you to confirm something for the court. Did you glean all the information from this newspaper article from what you overheard outside the hut? Of course you did. There can be no question of that. After all, when we were all in the laboratory together, all we were told of is that it was a terrible toxin. And there is one important fact to consider. According to the witness, Membani-san's verbal attack against the victim began as soon as she entered the hut. In other words, it would have been impossible for her to have slipped the poison into Miss Brett's drink.
Where are you going with this, counsel?
Membani-san has made it quite clear that he observed every single thing that happened in the beach hut. If the defendant had somehow found an opportunity, this man would have seen it. Which means that Miss Brett couldn't have imbibed the poison while the defendant was present. In fact, it must have been in the minutes before Membani-san entered the hut. Yes, very articulately put. When I walked in the hut, I immediately started to press Miss Brett about the poison. At which point, Membani-san overheard some worrying information.
Worrying information? What worrying information?
The information in which he subsequently included in his newspaper article, namely, that the poison was being developed in strict secrecy and that it couldn't be readily obtained. Absolutely. In fact, that's quite an understatement. The only possible place it could come from is my lab. And furthermore, anyone afflicted by the poison exhibit telltale signs in death. The extreme constriction of the pupils, yes, it's quite stark when you see it. There are other poisons that show similar symptoms, but not among new substances that are undetectable. In other words, it would be clear that the victim's life had been ended by use of this particular poison, which would reduce the number of suspects to only a handful of people. Everyone in my laboratory is aware of the unique properties of the toxin we've been developing. None of them would be foolish enough to attempt to use it for some nefarious deed. Membani-san being no exception. Therefore, we can conclude that whoever administered this unique poison to the victim was a layperson, unaware of its telltale properties. Oh. In other words, someone like you, Raita and Menimeto. It was you who stole the poison from the laboratory that day, and it was you who administered the unwitting victim. But you quickly realized that it was a terrible mistake. Because the poison caused such unusual symptoms and was so traceable. As you listen from the far side of the beach's thin walls, you learn to these facts, but you're already given the victim the poison at that point. It was too late. So you hatched a plan to disguise your mistake. A plan that involved stabbing the victim in the back through the reed screen.
Objection. But what good could that possibly do?
Misdirection. Is it an obvious, counsel? The plan was to kill Miss Brett before the poison could take effect. Should have stabbed her in the neck, man. Once in the blood, the poison causes the onset of pupil constriction. But he had hoped to participate in the victim's death before that happened, hadn't he? Exactly. Because without any revealing signs of the new secret poison's use, no one would ever have suspected. This is extraordinary. Yes, the effects of the poison meant it would be too easily identified that the killer had to mask its use, which he attempted to do by plunging a knife in the middle of the victim's back. Order, order, order. The argument presented is sound. The court is satisfied that it warrants consideration. Does the prosecution have a counter-argument that wishes to put forward?
Well, there are a number of, yes, counter completely.
The prosecution's evasive response clearly shows that in much of the same way as he nurtures the remnants of his top knot, he is clinging to his lost hope. What? Just beef on the guy's hair. Lost hope?
Hold it!
We know who it is.
He's not done.
He's gonna ask how we got it.
You pathetic, useless, fallen samurai. Fallen? Who are you calling fallen? I don't need counter-argument.
What are you talking about?
Should be blatantly obvious. I stole the poison, you say? Gave it to the victim, you say? I stabbed her, you say? Lots of fine theories. But I don't need a counter-argument, because you don't have an argument yourself. Where's your evidence? Yes, you make it sound also plausible, don't you? But without evidence, it means nothing. Whereas I base my news on facts.
Facts? What do you mean? Explain yourself.
I mean, what the professor said earlier in his trial. It's all here, in my many memos. Every word, every slip of the tongue, all noted. That's what Shoyu News is famous for. It's the power of the printed word.
But surely it would be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed from the government. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult.
How's that then? Blowing the door wide open. See? I write to me in a memo. A mere reporter from the Shoyu News. Couldn't possibly have stolen the poison from the professor's laboratory.
Ah. But there can't be any question of it. He must have stolen the poison that day. He stole it, and used it to kill. And if that's the case... As you've identified, the poison itself is definitive evidence we need. Because whoever stole it from the laboratory that day is the true culprit here.
What's your point, you annoyingly handsome country bumpkin.
My point is this. There is one way that you, Menemeno-san, could have stolen the poison that day.
Huh?
I have heard enough verbal conjecture now, thank you. What's the court must be shown as evidence? What proof do you have that this witness stole the poison on the day in question? Can we, like, examine it now?
Just present it.
The proof, Your Excellency, is this fountain pen. A fountain pen? How could that possibly be relevant? These magical pens somehow seem to have enough ink to write many thousands of kanji characters. I believe they arrived in our country for the first time some 15 years ago now.
I swear by a weasel hair, a calligraphy brush, and nothing else. A newfangled pens are a mere fad.
Well, as forward-thinking man of the words, obviously I love my fountain pen. Stuck up some poopcon for some scrumptious ink, and one work as a wash of words in the blink of an eye. That's right. Fountain pens have a small reservoir in the barrel, into which ink is sucked up through the nib of the pen in order to write the letter.
Does all of this talking of sucking up ink have a...
And just as it's possible to suck up ink up in the reservoir, it is also possible to eject it through the nib again, of course. My word. Can this really be? Well, many memo-san. When you saw the deadly poison before your eyes in the laboratory that day, you used your fountain pen, your very lifeblood, to steal some of it, didn't you? By siphoning the poison up through the nib and into the pen's reservoir.
Objection! More absurdity. That never happened.
True, we've heard that there were procedures in place to prevent thefts like this from the laboratory. But would anyone have thought to look inside a fountain pen of all places? No, I'm a little ashamed to say that for the fear of offending our guests, such a detailed search would not have been conducted. Well, this is quite startling, I must say. I remind the court that this pen was found in the clutches of the victim when she died. In other words, it was dropped at the scene by Menememo-san. So the crucial question is, when exactly was the pen dropped? Are you suggesting? The natural conclusion is that in your haste to ask while the victim was distracted for a moment, you dropped the pen after you emptied the poison from it into her glass.
Check. There could be any number of alternative explanations. For example, the witness could have been using his pen to write down details of his conversation with the victim. And when shocked by one of her outrageous answers, the pen fell from his quivering hand. Objection!
He didn't have a conversation. If that was, how do you explain why the pen was devoid of ink? What? As you can see for yourself, you examine the evidence. There would appear to be no ink present in the reservoir. What newspaper reporter goes to an interview with someone with nothing in his pen? No, the pen was dropped after the poison that was filled his reservoir had been emptied into the victim's glass. Witness, what do you have to say in your defense?
So this is how modern justice system works, is it? So what if the ink in my pen runs dry? So what if my pencil snaps? Can always claw my way back into the game. I have plenty in reserve. Ah! You claim I sucked the poison up into my pen? That's wild speculation. Nothing more. If you thought you could bring down a fine, upstanding citizen with a trick like that, think again.
It looks as though it's going to take one final decisive blow to finish the matter. As I see it, the situation is now very simple. It rests upon whether or not the witness did indeed steal the poison on the day in question, and therefore it all depends on whether or not the defense can prove that he did with evidence.
No such evidence possibly exists.
Objection. Man, this is how our modern justice system works.
Huh? What?
In the courtroom, evidence is everything. Something you would do well to remember. Because we are well past the point of speculation at this stage, I assure you. Very well, then I call upon the defense to present the aforementioned evidence. This is it, then. This will be the final piece in the puzzle. The defense can prove by means of this item that it was the witness's pen that was used to steal the poison. Counsel, what is this bottle? This bottle contains a unique chemical reagent that can identify the poison in question.
Huh?
Yes, that poison is an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids developed by my colleagues and I. It would be impossible to detect traces of it by any other method. Or from another perspective. Simply with this chemical reagent, anybody at all could check for traces of poison.
A reagent? What?
One drop of the contents of this bottle on the tip of your fountain pen, minimum of them, is all it will take to solve the case beyond all reasonable doubt. Here comes the breakdown, if there's
Get ready.
any.
Get ready for this.
You can't. I won't. I'm ready for this. Your crimes are bad enough, but at least know when to admit defeat. Your Excellency, the defense requests permission to carry out the test on the fountain pen at once.
This isn't my fault. The Empire drove me to this. Trying to hold my head high as a civilized nation of foreign powers swim. I took my arms with my fountain pen. I tirelessly entered the battlefield. Righteous men and such as
Sato, with me. The takedown. I'm there. Holy shit! They killed him. Okay, Ray's best girl. Did I do it right? That was a Sato takedown, wasn't it? Not quite. That was a Ryotaro takedown.
Best breakdown in the game.
Literally stopped him. The instant the first drop of the reagent touched the nib of the fountain pen, it was clear to everyone present.
When I saw it there in the lab, the poison. The devil got a hold of me and I decided to do it on a whim. Excused myself and emptied all the ink down the sink in the bathroom, washing the reservoir out carefully.
You waited for an opportunity to suck up some of the poison into your fountain pen.
Yes, that's right.
Answer me one thing, Manamino-san. Why did you steal it? For what purpose?
Isn't it obvious? To find out what it was made of and expose it in an article. I mean, it was a secret project after all. Too juicy for a journal like me to pass up. Then, why did the English woman end up dead?
I went in that hut into...
Girl.
Oh, god damn it. I'm ready.
And that hut intended to quiz her on the situation. That's all. As a reporter. A known killer. Enjoying full freedom. Evading justice by leaving the country. Told her what I thought about it. And she just laughed at my face. Oh, what's this? A Far Eastern caveman purporting to practice journalism? Really, you must learn the difference between reporting and listening at doorways, you ignorant plebeian. What? What did you call me? This country was his premonitions to a justice system, to a free press. It's really very depressing. You see our superior ways in the West, yet you lack the mental capacity to emulate them. Get out of here, you elf. Get out, and crawl back to the cave you came from. That's when I remembered. about the deadly poison I happened to have in my pen at the time.
What a terrible tale.
My main question was this, so I didn't really get into it. How did he get the poison in her cup without her knowing?
Yeah, that would be tough because she's obviously back facing towards her. Wouldn't let her just drop something in the drink.
Yeah, in my head, I knew I just couldn't get out of there as quickly as possible, but I couldn't. I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done, when she clearly had no remorse at all. Suppose it was my journal spirit getting all fired up.
I'd like to ask you something.
Yes?
You often talk about justice, but surely as a journalist, you could have used other means to deliver the justice you sought.
There's no justice in the press.
Sorry?
After that trial 9 months ago, I kept digging and digging to find out what had happened in the courtroom. And finally, I discovered the truth. It was a cover-up. That's what it was.
A cover-up? What do you mean? I would remind you of your position, witness. Be careful what you say.
Oh, come on. Doesn't it strike you as strange? We're all suddenly not allowed to convict a foreign national. Consular jurisdiction should never have come into it. And yet, the puffed-up Englishwoman was going to sail away into the sunset a free woman. The possible explanation is that, behind the scenes, some deal had gone down between Britain and Japan.
What sort of deal?
I've done my research, dug up all the dirt. I was all ready to be published. But you know what happened? The editor just tore up the article.
You came under pressure from the government, you mean?
If our government is going to let criminals walk free, they're going to crush the free press. What choice do I have? But to see justice is done myself.
Let's not forget, Menamemo-san, that you committed murder yourself and you tried to lay the blame on the defendant's door. I'm sorry, but you're no better than Jezebel Brett.
What?
The truth is, you have no right to talk about justice at all.
I suppose. Now, Earl, I want you to remember what just happened in that sequence, what Sasato just said to him. Because it's going to be a little bit significant looking at the future cases. Because there's going to be a little bit of a connection with what said was basically every case in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what line I'm referring to?
Which one specifically?
Let's not forget, Minimum-san, that you committed murder yourself and you tried to lay the blame at the defendant's door. I'm sorry, but you're no better than Giselle Brett. That is going to come into play. That scenario is going to come into play a lot.
Okay. It would appear that we've reached a conclusion in this trial at last. Counsel for the defense, Ryotaro Naruhodo. Oh, yes. Sorry, Your Excellency. I was just musing in a manly way here. It's almost unbelievable this is your first experience at the Supreme Court. It was an excellent performance. In truth, it very much reminded me of your cousin's exploits. Oh, Naruhodo-san. Ryunosuke, you mean. The way you handled the trial 9 months ago and the way you handled this one, it gives me hope that we are gently entering a new era of justice in this land. That's very flattering, Your Excellency. Hearing the defense you put forward today made me feel most keenly that the future of our justice system will be forged by you and your contemporaries. Thank you. So, Prosecutor Achi, do you have any final thoughts? No. 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 Prosecutor Achi. No. Don't do it, dude. I, Taketsukuchi of the Achi clan. I can't read it.
I dare you who have infested by you, not once now, but twice. There was any shred of my former self left. It has withered and died here today.
Gosh, your journey to cultural enlightenment sure took a while, didn't it?
Silence. Rather than
No,
living on
no,
in shame,
no.
I will end it all now with this blade. For that is the true path of Ryujiism.
One hopes is the only way in which he'll be modeling himself after the witness.
Brig of my top knot. The time is right for the farewell. Hope is lost forever. Taketsuki.
No, don't do it. As it flies in the wind.
You thought he was gonna suicide, didn't you?
No. I knew he was gonna cut off his hair as soon as I seen the knife, but just to see it like fly in the wind, right?
Everyone's like,
That's a clean ass cut. I was thinking that too, man. You have to get really close to the head to do the cut like that, man. Now, in regard to the defendant, Rei Membani-san. Yes, Your Excellency. I have reached my final verdict. I hereby find you
not guilty.
Not guilty.
Sakura petals. Woo!
Yeah, unfortunately, they're all withered now. Gotta wait another year for them.
Wah, wah.
Court is adjourned.
Now for some very interesting expletive.
It's over. My heart is still pounding in my chest, though. It's all I can do, just to stay standing. Lawyers have such great responsibility, such a great burden to bear. Don't they, Naruhodo-san? Sasato! Thank you so much. You were so dashing in there. Ray and Father. Honestly, I'm so touched by everything you've... Oh no, I think I'm going to cry. It wasn't easy, but together we made it. I was on the verge of tears at the end, too. The only reason I'm still here is because of you. Oh no, I can't take all the credit. It took courage to tell the truth in there. You did wonderfully, Ray. So I would have to say, the congratulations belongs to you. Sato, don't be so standoffish. Sorry? We're friends, equals, and the net trial's over, so no more of this formal super humility nonsense. It's time to celebrate with swagger, to throw the caution to the wind. Caution to the what? I'm the greatest defense lawyer, Ryotaro Naruhodo, and I'm taking you to a milk bar tomorrow. Or something. Right, I see. I'll think about it, Ray. At any rate, we really knocked the wind out of that horrid man, and it felt so good. Yes, it was satisfying. It really was. Isn't there anyone else we could throw it together? I hope you're not looking at me, Ray. Oh my goodness. No, of course not. Of course not. Ah, there it is at last. Ray's lovely smile. You fought for your friend to the very last. As your father, I'm extremely proud of you. Defense attorney, Ryotaro Naruhodo. Thank you, but I couldn't have done it without your help. Anyway, it's time to bid farewell to Ryotaro, I think. I shall miss him in a way, but it's back to Sasato Mikotoba now. So I'll never see him again then. What a terrible shame. Who heard?
What?
Oh, they heard. What is happening? Saseki-san and Inspector Hosonoga, I do hope you've been keeping well. Is that...
Is that really you?
Yes, I had to change my appearance for, well, obvious reasons, I hope. But it's me, Sasato Mikotoba. I don't. Well,
I was doing Hosonaga because Hosonaga was coughing.
oh, so dashing, so divine. No. Doubly dashing. Yes, and then devilishly divine. Just look at you. I had no idea, Miss Asada-san, Esquire, that you were a local student, not a Hodo-san's Esquire's cousin.
Oh, good
Dumbass.
grief, Saseki.
Astoundingly astounding ace attorney. Poor Saseki-san. So confused. I still remember the first time I ever met him. He was in prison cell in London. What an extraordinary conundrum it was that the unwitting student from Japan found himself embroiled in. But after Naruto-san's skillful defense, the Old Bailey, Saseki-san was free to return to Japan. And now he seems to have earned himself great fame as an author.
I'm stunned. That truly was an impressive disguise. Even I had no idea, and I'm Chief Inspector who came up with Mr. Turtle, no less.
I'm not sure you should be admitting to that, Inspector. Amazing.
You're a woman of many faces, I see.
Just two, really, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime event, I hope. I'm not a patch on you, though, Inspector.
Well, I'm a professional, of course.
I do worry about Inspector Hosonoga sometimes. I really do. Nine months ago, when he appeared here at the Supreme Court to testify, he was undercover disguised as the head waiter of a restaurant. And then on the steamship to Great Britain, of course, disguised as my sailor to keep us safe on the journey.
Kazuma.
Though that didn't help you, did it, Kazuma-sama? From my perspective.
I have to admit that I have mixed feelings about all this. I mean, not that the truth has been lost forever.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about the murder that the Englishwoman committed in the end of last year.
Ah, yes, it was an English doctor she killed, as I understand it. Dr. John H. Wilson, yes, the man I invited to Japan personally.
The mystery is, why did she kill him? Now that the culprit herself is dead, we'll probably never know the answer.
On the voyage to Great Britain, we had the most unexpected encounter with Mr. Herlock Sholmes, the great detective, I mean.
Yes, I remember Mr. Sholmes well. Of course.
Ah, my arch nemesis. How lightly you utter his name. Well, according to the stories published about him in the Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, the detective once had a partner who helped him solve crimes. A best friend. And that man was exceptional doctor of medicine, by the name of John H. Wilson. What? Dr. Wilson? I just can't believe that's a coincidence. I think that the English doctor of medicine killed here in Japan 9 months ago must have been friend and partner of Mr. Sholmes. And if that's really true, then the poor girl won't ever see her beloved father again.
Wah, wah, wah.
As you know, I traveled to Great Britain once myself to study. It was around the time you were born. Yes, grandmother told me about it. On returning to Japan, I took up my professorship at the Imperial Yume University, but I also serve another role, as an advisor to the government on diplomatic affairs. Yes, I was aware of that as well. In that case, I'm sure you understand that there are some confidential matters I cannot divulge to you. His own daughter, man. Could you just tell me one thing? Why did you summon me back to Japan? It's been 2 months now since I returned. When I left England, it was because an urgent telegram had arrived from Japan. It said you collapsed with high fever and you were growing weaker by the day. I was actually wondering about that myself. What? Where did that news come from? That's what I'd like to know, because after that long sea voyage, I found you in fine health, Father. Was there something in Great Britain that you perceived that might inconvenience me in some way or harm me? That's really the only explanation I can think of. Dear me, do you reserve your most cutting glares for your father, Sasato? I'm sorry, my dear. I simply can't. Let me go.
Let me go.
Oh, he's gonna have something interesting to say. Me, Menemo-san. So, one throw wasn't enough for you. I've got one last thing to
One last thing
Oh,
to
yeah,
say
fuck.
before you take me away, Professor.
Me?
I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on. In that visiting student's fate.
Visiting students.
Visiting student? Giselle Britt, you mean? No, not her. The student of law who left for Great Britain 8 months ago.
Student of law, you must mean. Kazuma-sama. What are you talking about? What does this have to do with Kazuma-sama?
Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know the guy never made it to England. That he died on that steamship. And that he'll never... Ah!
Who threw him? The judge threw him! Well, I didn't expect them to find him in here. What were your officers playing at? Terribly sorry.
Terribly sorry, Your Excellency.
Oh my god. How does no one in Japan know?
Because it's being covered up.
I was coming to tell you that the rickshaw has arrived, Eugen. And it's a good job I came by. Yes, thank you for dealing with him. And I'll be there shortly. You know, the judge and him are actually fairly similar in age. There might be something big going on here. Your Excellency. The trial's over. I'm not Your Excellency anymore. Merely your father's friend. Say, that's his name!
We get a judge's name.
No, but this is that name in that at the ending. Is it not?
His name is not. I thought that at first because I didn't remember right.
Yeah.
His name is not on that list.
But I do remember hearing this name. I could have sworn. I know
Name was not mentioned in the first game.
Are you sure? Because I know Jigoku sounds very familiar.
You might have heard it like in another game because Jigoku is a pretty common. I know Jigoku is like in Naruto, like as one of the pain things.
It's gonna bother me.
This is the first time we heard a name.
I'm gonna like flash back to something later, and you better not be lying to me.
Because the list was K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. That was the list of names that you were talking about.
This name, though, I don't know why. It's something. It feels like I'm not seeing it for the first time, though.
I had the same feeling, but I was completely wrong.
And I may say that since I saw you last, you seem to have taken on a more dashing appearance. Sasato. Oh, he knew. Did you know all along from the start of the trial? Ha ha ha. A judge sees everything, Sasato. I couldn't let you take the risk. If Seshiro here hadn't known, then he'd recognized you. So I had a word in his ear beforehand as an old friend. So, Seshiro, shall we? Yes, having ruled in the case, we may now have various diplomatic issues to address. Before you go, Father. Sorry, my dear, we shall have to return to our earlier conversation at a later date. But well done again, both of you. You did admirably. Oh, thank you very much. What did you think of my Seishiro sling, eh? It's been a while since I sent a man flying like that. Whatever could Father be hiding from me? About Giselle Brett, about Dr. Wilson, and now it seems, according to the reporter, about Kazuma-sama. I'm going to have to bring this up with Father sometime, when nobody else is around. Hi. I'm Judicial Assistant Mikuro-san, Esquires. Could I have a word? Oh, yes, of course, Saseki-san. What is it? I think perhaps it could be fate that we're meeting again like this now. You see, there's something I need to tell you. Oh. I believe that I may be related to the reason why your father summoned you back from England. This I have to hear. Please, Saseki-san, tell me at once. I will. As you know, my time in England was terrible, cursed, I have no doubt. Such awful things I was embroiled in, thank goodness locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire stepped in. After he secured my freedom, I couldn't wait to get on a ship back here in my homeland. Having arrived in Japan, I submitted the report about my experiences in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, like he said he would. The next thing I knew, I had a visitor. It was your father, Professor Mikotoba. He wanted to ask me all sorts of things about my report. My father? He seemed to be especially taken with a particular part of the report. Anyway, he left eventually, having thoroughly quizzed me. But it was the very next day that he sent a telegram to you asking you to return to Japan. What was it then? The particular part my father was interested in? I don't really know exactly. But do you remember them? Those two terrible cases I was caught up in? Of course, I could never forget. Your father seemed to concern himself mainly with the second case. The second one? You mean the one Mr. Sholmes forbade any of us to talk about in public?
Dun dun dun.
Hold on. Which is why the only case involving you that any member of the public is aware of is the first. Right, the first case is the maid upstairs, right? The second case refers to which one again?
Second case, you don't know yet.
Oh. Well, I don't care. I don't have to listen to what a dastardly detective says. Anyway, the point is, it seems that the case somehow holds the key to all these curious unanswered questions. Is that the case that was happening at the same time as the last case in the first game?
No.
Okay. That
So
horrific...
the timeline for this case is like following the fourth case of the last game, which is the one where it was the maid.
Yeah, so right after that
We're
case.
going to be doing that case that he's referencing right here is what you're going to be doing next.
Oh, that's chapter 2.
That's the next one.
Okay, and... Interesting. That case somehow caused my father to summon me urgently back to Japan. I thought that the whole business was over, but it seems I was wrong. Perhaps this was only the start, perhaps the story is not yet told.
So, the mystery of that English woman's death is solved, thank goodness. And having stood in the Supreme Court now, I think I can comprehend a little better. How you must be feeling as you fight for people's freedom in a foreign land, Naruhodo-san. But actually, I'm writing to you today because of another matter.
Why do I have an English accent when I'm Japanese?
Second case he was involved in.
Bit.
Father has said nothing to me, but I feel certain of it. That case holds the key to some great unsolved mystery. My notes on the case should still be in the office, tucked away at the back of the shelves on the left. Perhaps you might like to look over them again. Today, for the first time this year, it feels as though summer has arrived. The sky is a brilliant blue. It makes me long to see
Sky is
you
brilliant
again.
blue. There's clouds everywhere.
Yours, Susato.
Refrigerator. That's our haiku. The sky is blue. The sky is... It's like cloudy everywhere. Refrigerator.
So, where is your head at for the storyline now?
A little scrambled. I'm not gonna lie. If I didn't have your help on that one point, I would have fucking game overed like 5 times, man. I wouldn't have understand why the fuck they were talking about limiting the amount of people as the poison.
Yeah, because the key point of that one was you have to realize, okay, so he used the poison on her, and then he overheard some details that would like instantly identify the poison if she just died and
Yeah.
didn't have like any bodily wounds or anything. So that would have been immediately flags to the poison, and the only people that recently had access to the poison was limited to very few people.
Yeah,
and he would have found out very quickly.
That would have killed me, definitely. Alright, that's the end of the case.